So you don't drink coffee?
Yeah, 5 years ago, my wife and my kids were visiting me in Washington. I think it was 5 years ago, I sort of lost track of time.
Yeah.
And it threw me off, it threw the schedule off, and at the end of the day I realized I hadn't had a cup of coffee, and I thought, well, that was fine, and I've not had one since.
So what do you do? What's your alternative?
So mint tea is what I usually drink,
Yeah.
and this is a mint tea from Colorado.
Why are you running for president?
I'm running for president because I think that if we don't straighten out our politics, we're going to be the first generation of Americans to leave not less opportunity, not more, to the people that are coming after us. And before I got into politics, I spent my life outside of it. I was in business, and then the job I had right before I became a senator was being superintendent of the Denver Public Schools, 95,000 kids, mostly kids of color, mostly kids living in poverty. And I know how hard they're working, and I know how hard their parents are working just to try to drag their kids above the poverty line. And I've seen Washington for the last 10 years not work for anybody.
So tell me about the superintendent job that you had. You went from business to superintendent of a very large school district, and I'm curious what you learned about yourself along the way in that particular position.
I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about America. I mean, I think I came face to face with the fundamental inequities of a system where the quality of your school is defined by the zip code you're born into. It just isn't right, and it just isn't fair.
Can you tell me a bit about yourself, your story, where you're from, what brought you to this day?
When I was in the second grade, this story won't be as long as that sounds, but that is kind of an interesting starting point. When I was in the second grade, my class in school was asked to line up from whose family was here the longest and whose family was here the shortest period of time.
Interesting question for kids.
And I was the answer to both those questions. My dad's family had come here on the Mayflower. My mom and her parents were Polish Jews who had survived the Holocaust and came to New York, where it was the only place in the world they thought they could rebuild their shattered lives. And my mom was the only one in the family who spoke any English at all. She registered herself in school, and anyway, she ended up graduating from Hunter College High School in the New York City Public Schools and going to Wellesley College. And my dad, for his whole life, was a public servant of one kind or another, and he taught us that public service is noble, and I believe it is noble.
You have daughters.
3. Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's awesome. They're 20, 19, and 15. When I was trying to decide whether to run for president, I went home and I asked them what they thought, because I hadn't prepared them at all for the idea. I'd never said, oh, I'm going to run for president, because I hadn't thought about it. My 20-year-old said, she said, Dad, if you run and you tell the truth and you lose, no one can fault you for it. And I said to her, Caroline, that's true, and it's the only reason for me to run, and it's the only way I think that I can win. And I think the truth really, really matters at this point in the country's history.
What about you do you think voters don't know yet?
I'm the only candidate in this race who's actually won 2 national elections in a purple state, the state of Colorado. Nobody else has done that. And when you run in a state like mine, you learn that you got to say the same thing in the primary that you say in the general election, the same thing in urban areas that you say in rural areas. People want to know what you stand for, and they want to know that it's not just about politics, but that you're actually trying to do something useful for them and for their kids.
And you're trying to do useful stuff in your spare time traveling, right? And I was amassing here that you are an avid reader.
Yeah, I love to read. About 7 years ago or so, I stopped reading politics on the airplane and newspapers, and I started reading books. And I keep a coffee table in my office in Washington that's filled with the books that I've read that I really love.
What is one thing about your campaign you want them to definitely know?
I would say the one thing is that I get up every morning thinking about the next generation of Americans. I think we have a president who doesn't care about my kids and doesn't care about anybody else's kids. If we can't deliver something better than we're delivering them right now, as I said at the beginning, we really will be the first generation of Americans to leave less opportunity, not more, to the kids coming after us. And there's no reason for us to do that. We just can't accept our current politics. And that's not just about Trump. It's about what led to Donald Trump, which was a breakdown in our ability to govern ourselves. We've got to fix that.
Senator Michael Bennet, thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Thanks a lot.